Hello and welcome to Better Business Podcast. My name is Alexei and I'm your host. And today I've got our first international guest, Jean-Luc. How you going there, mate?
Great. Thank you for having me on.
Now, this is quite spontaneous and interesting, but Jean-Luc actually found us by watching the podcast and reached out, and I think he's got quite an interesting business and a story behind the business. And out of all things, he's currently in Nicaragua living the dream. So, mate, I won't take it away from you. Tell us about your business and how you got into the whole thing. I really want you just to tell the story because I think it's amazing.
Okay. Well, I started as an entrepreneur when I was 17 as a self-employed personal trainer. And then I met a mentor actually that raised my standard. He said, "Are you going to count reps your whole life? Are you going to tell your kids that dad counts to 10?" And it really irritated me. I was like, "What? Is that what you think I do? That's all you think I do?" And in my head, I was thinking, man, I go out of my way for this guy, right? But he was a, burly construction multimillionaire, and he saw something in me. He knew I was a Canadian champion in bodybuilding at the time, and he just wanted to raise my standard. And he did. And he said, "What's your dream?" And I said, "One day I want to open my own gym." He said, "When are you going to do it?" And I thought, I don't know. He was putting deadlines in place, and then I said, "I don't know." He said, "Well, next time I come in and work out with you, I want an answer to that question." So he showed up at the gym. I said, "Okay, in a year from now." He said, "If you can do it in a year, you can do it in 6 months." And 3 months later, I was open. So the power of that mentor. And then I opened the gym, not knowing anything about business. I had to learn everything. My mentor gave me a book called The E-Myth Revisited. That was a book that changed my life. I looked at it, I read it. If you haven't read this, I was like, oh my God, I was seeing all the mistakes all businesses were making, and I was trying to jump in and do it myself. But anyone that's read that book, it's about systems, adding systems within the business. And that really conflicts with a lot of people because you're putting rules in place, you're putting order. And I felt like I was alone, like the only guy that is wanting this to succeed. And I had pushback, and that took me 5 to 7 years. And I would go back to my mentor and ask him, "What do I do?" And he would just keep pointing me to the book. And I kept wanting to burn this book. I wanted to throw it out. I wanted nothing to do with it. And then after 5 to 7 years, I started to master it. At this point, I was in my mid-20s, and I started to master systems. I understood all the operations. And then I decided, wow, how can I apply this in different ways? So I started different companies, event companies, app companies, educational companies, and I just applying these skills that I had developed. And then I eventually, when I was 30, I ended up selling my business for a few $1 million, which gave me enough money, right? I had started with nothing. So, I didn't have a family giving me money or anything like that. So I just, wow, I had all this money all of a sudden in my bank account. And I was like, all right, what do I do next? And I decided to start an incubator called Miyagi, which was the Karate Kid mentor, right? So my whole Mr. Miyagi. So I saw that my success came from a mentor. My mentor passed away. And then I ended up looking back at my own journey and realized what made me successful was my team, was mentoring my team all the time. So I wanted to position myself in my skill set, and what I love doing is coaching. So I started this incubator with the plan to just start 10 businesses a year, own a part of it, but then mentor these people into growing. And I did that. And then out of that grew a meditation studio chain. And at the time I realized, wow, like I was meditating myself, really seeing the benefits of it because I was into fitness. That's where I started. I still had a passion for health. Like I always wanted people to have optimal health. And I just was fascinated about that. And when I started meditation after 30 days, I was like, wow, I'm going to do this the rest of my life because I was seeing the benefits of it. And then it became more than that because I thought, wow, this is the most honorable thing I could do in the world. This is raising consciousness worldwide would elevate everyone's awareness to look at themselves, you know? So I said, okay, I actually gave away the incubator. I, I gave everyone their shares. I didn't want anything to do with it. I started this company called the Peace Room. And the Peace Room, I showed up every single day just working and just making sure to build this business. And within a year, I had over 150 franchise requests all over the world. It was just exploding without any advertising. This is what's crazy, because I was in the middle of a city and my vision was to have them all over the world in different cities, these little locations where people can connect together over tea and meditation. And then COVID hit. And when COVID hit, it just bursted the whole bubble because they needed to separate people. And I was trying to bring people together. So I was doing meditations on Parliament Hill in Ottawa in Canada with hundreds of people, you know, over every day, every week. So thousands of people over the summers. I was just fascinated about it. But when COVID hit, I knew I had to close. So I had to take all that work and just let go and practice what meditation had taught me, which was non-attachment, to just move on. Like, don't fret, just keep going. Just keep, it's the skills that you build, you know, that is the real gold. So I let it go. I actually sold my $1 million house, you know, I had the cars, I had everything. I didn't care about it anymore. It was all sort of like this status, trying to impress, and I just let it all go and went on a road trip. Actually, I didn't tell you about this, but went on a road trip, bought an RV, grabbed my family, and we just went out to Vancouver Island, and we just wanted to experience life. We ended up on the island. We ended up meeting other families that were in these RVs, and we all had this sort of common values about living, you know, and they told me they were heading out to Nicaragua, and they're like, come with us. I was like, really? I don't know about that, you know? And it took me days. I would go hiking every day. I was hiking a new trail. I had a mission to just hike different trails. I'm hiking trails, meditating by the water, thinking, is this really my calling? Is this really what I need to be doing right now? Leaving the country? And eventually I heard that there was horses down in Nicaragua that were like really cheap. A few $100 you get a horse. And my daughter, that is her passion. Like, my daughter's passion is very focused on horses. And I had a $35,000 horse back home, you know. It cost me $1,000 a month just to hold them. So I thought to myself, wow, it's like I gotta live for her now, you know. I gotta fan her flame. So that's what got me to move, was like the horses. So I moved down here. She has 3 horses right now. She's in her passion. I live on an island in the middle of nowhere, and I have my daughter basically doing riding lessons for people, teaching camps. She's 11 years old. Wow. All out of, she designed the barn that we build, because when you're in your passion, when you're in what you love, all else comes together, right? Like, she all of a sudden became an architect designer, you know, using the internet, because she was passionate. She would find the answers. She becomes resourceful, you know, to return to source, to really to ourselves. So it was this incredible thing, but very difficult because I didn't know the language. I didn't know how to speak Spanish. So, and I had to reinvent myself. I had to go, okay, how do I do this without a personal network? I put all my money into cryptocurrency before I left, and it crashed by 80%. So it's like I had a fresh start, you know? And I thought, wow, okay, can I do this from this island with a very poor internet connection? And I just put it out there. I said, listen, I'm doing business coaching. I'm on this island. You guys know my past. You know, there's people in my network on Facebook that know of my success. And I said, if anyone wants coaching, I'm here to help you. And I got my first 2 clients, and that was enough to get me started. And then from that, it just built, and I learned how to network online, to get on podcasts like this, to spread my message, you know, to trust yourself and to do what you love, follow the fire. So that brings me to here.
Yeah, mate. Well, I didn't want to interrupt you at all. I think there's so many parts of your story that are inspiring and interesting, I think, for people to explore further. No doubt there'll be lots of listeners who may want to change something in their life and sell their house and move on and so on. But I think it takes a lot of confidence and a lot of courage to be able to do something like that. So, mate, hat off to you. I think that's excellent. I must also say that the internet in Nicaragua, in the middle of nowhere where you are, is actually pretty good. Here in Australia, it's an ongoing issue for a lot of people, and it's actually quite embarrassing living in a first world country where we have internet issues like we have. So
Really?
yeah, it's quite fascinating. But mate, back to your business. So with your business coaching, you mainly work with personal trainers, or is it different types of businesses? Tell us about your coaching style and I guess the framework that you use.
Yeah, so I work with service businesses that are local, that have 3+ employees. So in all industries, the framework is the same for them all. I bounced around trying to help different industries. I realized that this was my sweet spot. I don't want to teach anything I haven't done myself, right? So where I had the most success was my personal training studios, which was a service business. Then I started an academy. It was another service business. I feel that service and people and connection is where I thrive. So that's where I started to help. And I work with moving companies, to cleaning companies, to construction companies, to gut health businesses, like all sorts of different things, but they have to fit that criteria for me.
And what sort of results do you help them achieve?
So there's 2 things that I track. To me, a leader takes a big risk, right? The difference between the leader and the employee is that they're putting money on the line. They're putting risk on the line. They're putting their time on the line to make nothing for a long time sometimes. And to me, it's getting them to realize that their time is valuable, that all these risks that they took is like, now they deserve to get time and money back. And what I track with each client that I have is how much time are you spending working, and how much money profit are you making? So profit and time. And to me, if time isn't if money isn't making you more time, then what's the point? Because I'm a big believer in moments, in moments with my daughter, in moments with in following my hobbies, and just creating the life you want to live, right? So, and I believe that, well, I've done it myself, so it's just proof. I've done it myself, and I did it with many clients that I've coached, is that systems are what sets you free. Systems are the infrastructure, the leverage that means you don't have to hold all that responsibility. That if you have systems in place and then you get good people to run those systems, then you can step out of that. And the way I see success in leadership is that a leader that has their head always busy with thoughts, that is always inside the business, running around, answering this, answering that, and they're the source of all solutions, cannot see farther. They can't see very far because they're in it. So I have to remove them to make sure that they're on top of the mountain, and they can have a nice vision of where we're going. and they can have the time and the calmness to be like, yes, this is the right direction, right? Instead of reacting to just respond to life.
Mm. I can certainly relate to it, and I think you've obviously covered quite a lot of things. I think it's very important to become a master in what you do, and you're showing that by example. And what that means basically is that once you learn something, you got to be able to do it, and then you got to be able to teach people. Now, a lot of people stop right there. However, there's another fourth component that a lot of people forget about, which is actually a pivotal point when it comes to becoming a master. It's actually living it as well. Now, if we use an example of martial arts, for example, you'll find that anyone who's really good or has got the following and stuff, they're the people who actually live what they do as well. Mr. Miyagi wasn't just a good karate guy who learned how to do it, got his black belt, and decided to retire. It's an evolving journey, and I think in business, especially with technology, in my case, is where you have to really understand things and stay on top of things as well. So, mate, I 100% can relate to what you're saying. I can also feel a few references to the E-Myth, which you've obviously mentioned earlier, and also I'm not sure if you've read this or you use that in some way. Simon Sinek's Leaders Eat Last. Have you read that book?
I haven't read that one, no.
Yeah, but the concept that you're talking about is very similar. I 100% agree. Business owners being in the business sometimes basically sacrifice their life, their time, and everything else in order to make a business work. And that's crazy to a normal person. So I never consider business owners to be normal, because you got to be crazy to do what you do. But yeah, oftentimes you don't really get a chance to go on holidays and eat and get paid as well. It's quite a risky environment. But mate, yeah, I can 100% relate. So with your coaching right now, how does it work? How do people find you? How do they contact you?
Yeah, so if they go to coachjeanluc.com, I have workshops that I do, and I also have an assessment where it assesses your systems in your business. So to me, there's 12 systems. Okay, so I'll just name them off. You have the leadership at the top, that's balancing time and money, okay, time and profit. Then you have the manager, okay, that's the executor of that work. They execute, that's their job. You have to have a gauge. You need to have gauges, just like you're in an airplane. You got to have gauges to show how good we're doing. So you have your gauges, you have your manager. To the left, you have finance, financial reporting. These types of things are very important, right? Knowing what your numbers are every day. Then to the other side of that, you have branding, making sure that your brand is following the right messaging, right? Then below that, you have two pillars. Okay, this is just a concept that I've created through working with clients. You have two pillars. You have the client pillar and you have the employee pillar. Okay, these are two separate pillars, but they also function together. But the pillar goes for the clients, you have lead generation, right? Sales. Then you have service, right? So just following the flow of that client coming in, lead generation, sales, service, and then I call it a delight. Okay, delight is you're doing a job that is remarkable, worth making a remark about. You're getting testimonials, you're getting reviews. They're creating delight. You're creating delight in your company. The other pillar is employees. This is really simple if you look at this, right? In the employee pillar, you got recruiting, you got hiring, you got onboarding, and you got ongoing coaching. Those are the 12 systems that run every service business with employees that are local. Okay, there's different ways online now and things like that where I'm talking about local service businesses with employees with the goal to expand their companies.
Okay.
So if you want to know more about that, you can go to my website, do the survey, the assessment, and it'll give you a score. It'll give you a little piece of advice. And if you want to tick off to get on my waiting list, go for it. And if not, join a masterclass, workshop, and I'll try to provide as much value as I can. I'm all about, as you said, Alexei, impact. We just want to create impact like you. I want to create impact. So if I can spread goodness around the world, that's awesome.
Mate, look, I think you've covered a lot in that very little time span, and I can see how passionate you are about things. So for those listeners who are thinking, what the hell is he talking about? I can't visualize that. I'll see if I can potentially provide a reference in the description of these podcasts to maybe a visual or to a reference, at least the website. But I find that people who are true experts in what they do see the simplicity in a system and see how everything works. However, majority of people don't see that simplicity, and I often find it's a matter of the fact that people are too focused on the minor detail that actually makes them not see the bigger picture. Do you see that very much when it comes to business owners in the business, out of the business?
Give me an example.
Well, you have a lot of people who potentially just fiddle with their marketing too much. They completely forget about their customer service. They want to make their website better every single day. It's almost like a hobby.
Okay, yes. What's coming to me is when people really love a certain aspect and they're sort of in their own way, right? Like they love doing the work as a technician. And then they can't pull themselves away from it because they think that they're the only ones that can do the work that good, you know? But it's like it's just not true. It's just this ego that we're sort of like, and if you stay in that smallness, just like my mentor I mentioned at the beginning, that knocked me out of my own self, right? That made me see life to a higher standard and how much more impact I can create. These people stay stuck in the technician going, I can't delegate this to anyone else, you know, and it's so not true. You know, you can delegate, even if it's 80% of what you produce, it's still worth getting out so you can level up to the next level and help more people.
And how did you get into coaching? I mean, you obviously referred to mentor a couple of times. It's obviously quite a big step for a business owner to engage a business coach and obviously admit the fact that they don't know as much as they maybe think they know, and then also ask for help. Because let's be honest, the majority of people get into business when they sort of, mature adults, and a lot of the time ego kicks in right in there. So people are like, oh, I should be able to resolve this myself. Other people do it, I can do it myself, or I don't need anybody else, I can work this out. I mean, what's your approach to it? How did you get into coaching?
Yeah. Oh, Alexei, such good questions. Thank you. I've always been into sports. So I was a Canadian champion in bodybuilding. So I grew up around, I think coaching, I grew up around performance. And to me, I did martial arts. You talked about martial arts. You really hit the heartstrings there. I wanted to keep going on that subject because I still practice martial arts a lot, twice a week here, and I actually coach it also. But it's second nature to athletes to that if you want to be in the top, that you need a coach. It's like I couldn't be Canadian champion if I was just doing it myself, and the studies show it. There's a recent study that came out that you get 67% more output. And I mean, if you ever hired a personal trainer, you know this, that when you're going to do push-ups and you think you can do, I don't know, 30, if you have a trainer beside you, just simply there, you're going to do an extra 10 at least on that 30. I was a trainer for long enough that I think you'll probably do an extra 15 on that 30 with somebody else there. So that's a big jump, right? So that's a big jump in what you're going to put out there. And that's the difference from winning to losing. And I also have a podcast called the Freedompreneur Show, which I want you to come on, by the way. Yeah, so the Freedompreneur Show, I just recently, my last guest, Lubomir Kisyov, I have a fascination for coaches. So I get them on my program. Anything that's going to better people, I want to have them on. So Lubo has 24 years of having gold medalists at the Olympics, right? 24 years he's had gold medalists. So, and I met this guy when I was a personal trainer at 17 years old. And I saw his attitude, and I said, what does it take to make a world champion? And he said, everyone has the same workout program. Everyone's doing the same thing. Like it. And he told me a story of this champion, this gold medalist that him right now, it's in rowing. He's in Switzerland. And on a rowing boat, you have a certain amount of people, right? And he said for 4 years, they've been training to win the gold medal in the Olympics. And for 4 years, they've been training just like all the other teams. But the week before, Lubo told the athletes, he said, I don't want you to leave your house. Like, I don't want to risk anything. Do not go cycling on a bike. Do not do anything. He had an athlete that didn't listen, went on their bicycle and fell over, bumped their thigh on the sidewalk, okay, because they still had those clip-on shoes, fell. She got like a Charlie horse in her leg. The week before they started on the water, he was 10 seconds behind. And he said 10 seconds in rowing is astronomical big gap. He said, what went wrong here in all the rowers? One girl said, I fell off my bike. I went biking when you told me you couldn't. So that's the difference of making a champion. You know, one person out of a team falling off the bike. And we're talking about just perfection in execution. And when you have a coach there to just be like, this is what we need to do, you know, every day, can we put in your habits so we can make sure that it reaches the outcome you want? That's the big value of a coach. And that's not going to be replaced by AI. That's not going to be replaced by anything, because we can't, you know, when we look at content, right? Content can be taken by AI, but we're not going to feel accountable to a robot. We're going to feel accountable to a person. We don't want to let them down because they take on the win with us. To me, a good coach is somebody that's taking on the challenge like it's their own, if not more.
I can relate to a lot of things you're saying, man, and it's a big subject. I asked the question to open things up a little bit, but you've obviously gone quite in depth. I can certainly relate to the whole, making things better, hence the name Better Business for this podcast. And right. I do admire the things you do, and obviously love to be a guest on your podcast. Now, let's just rewind back a little bit, because you've covered a lot of things. I think, I speak fast, but you speak a lot of content, which is awesome. Martial arts. So what is it that you're training?
I've been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu my whole life.
Awesome, brother. And, so I'm a purple belt right here, so I can certainly relate to it. Yeah, it's very addictive stuff. So I know exactly what you're going through. But it's something that requires time, and it's something that requires passion as well. Yeah.
Oh, this is why we get along so well. Okay, I can feel it. Purple belt, right? So I'm on the island. I'm training with 8 guys twice a week. You know, we hold each other accountable. We have our little group. Everything on the mat applies to life. You know this as a purple belt. You're better than me. So I'm a blue belt, and I'm helping these guys out that are beginners. I'm just trying to introduce them to the benefits of really getting into your body and pushing up against another person and using your mind and your awareness and feeling into everything you're doing.
Yeah. Well, look, I've been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for over 8 years now, and I've got my own reasons as to how I got into it. I wasn't really looking for martial arts to start, but I must say that the principles were very universal, not only for the martial art itself, but also for business. The whole action, reaction, response, having the ability to not just move back or forward, but also have a directional advantage. I must say I've skipped way too many gradings, and I've taken too many breaks. Majority of the guys I started training with are now, brown and black belts and everything. And, I do get my ass kicked quite a fair bit, I must admit. But at the same time, for me, it's not about competition. It's not about winning. It's about learning. And I do love the environment. So the moment you said Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it makes total sense. It's got this fundamental brotherhood, which actually allows people to understand each other almost on like a, I don't know, cosmotic, like a space type of connection where you just got no explanation for it, but everyone's like, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I feel it, I breathe it. Great. So it's a really good foundation. Now, martial arts is, I think, one of the things that gives people a very practical example of how things work, and I guess the consequences of doing things wrong. Now, the one thing that a lot of people don't understand, though, is that if you do something wrong in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specifically, or you get injured or something happens, it's actually your own fault. So you're always in control, and you are the ones who actually get to dictate the rules. So, and this is a practical, I guess, analogy with the business owners, because business owners are fully in control of what they do. However, oftentimes they decide to believe these ideas or just go with the flow where, hey, it's this economy or it's this market or it's suddenly COVID or whatever else. Look, I understand some external factors are huge, but at the same time, it's the control that the business owner has. But oftentimes what they're lacking is, and that's what you referred to earlier, is the mentorship and the coaching and the ideas behind what they could be doing to direct their business towards their goal. Now, you are obviously showing by your example as to what you've done, sitting on an island doing what you love. That's amazing. And I think a lot of business owners, not even 1%, would be able to achieve that, unfortunately. So what sort of advice, what sort of advice would you have for business owners that are thinking, hey, I want a business, I want more free time, I want to do what I love, I want to be successful? If they can be on an island within 5 years or something like that, what sort of tips can you give them to get there?
Yeah, well, first of all, I don't think selling is necessarily the answer, right? I sold, but you can do this. Like when I was running my business, I was also going to Mexico for a month, and I would have one phone call a week with my manager. And this is doable in continuing a cash flow, right? Which is what most people I work with want. They actually just want like a cash cow business that they can just step away from, have free time, and continue the growth of the business. But I would say one thing that's key is it's just really stepping into your leadership. And to me, leadership is vision, focus, and commitment. It's really simple. You have a vision, it's clear. Here's where I want to go. I want to be a black belt, right? And then you have to focus towards that vision, which means you need to remove all distractions from your life that are conflicting. The people in your life, anything that is bringing down and intruding on that, which means time management. You have to manage your time because your time is your life. Like once we put time into a calendar, it frames what we're doing. So the first question I ask business owners is, how connected are you to your calendar? And that will tell me almost everything about their business. Okay, because it's going to show me how tight or how loose they're running their ship. Okay, because if you are a reflection of your business. If you're loose, your business is loose. If you're sloppy, your business is sloppy. How you do one thing is how you do everything. Okay, so vision, focus is putting boundaries in place, channeling that energy through calendar. Okay, then commitment. If you can't get yourself out of bed in the morning because you want to sleep in, well, you're failing yourself, and you're going to erode your self-esteem because you're not focused. You're not doing what is necessary. You're doing what feels good, and that doesn't work when you're wanting to achieve a goal. So commitment, focus, vision. It's like a triangle. At the top, you have vision, you have focus, and then you have commitment at the bottom. It's my simplified, it's in a nutshell leadership, as simple as I can get it.
Awesome. Okay. Well, look, we covered so many things, and I feel like we can be talking for forever, mate. And
can I just mention something? Can I just mention something about the jiu-jitsu? Just because it's not every day I get to talk to another podcast host that does jiu-jitsu that's a purple belt that will really understand me. So selfishly, I want to share this. Today, I had in our WhatsApp group from the guys that do BJJ with me. he mentioned, he goes, guys, like yesterday we pushed a lot, we pushed hard, and like I told people I would go like 40% effort because I just wanted to show up. He goes, but I want to instill, he goes, but I ended up hurting my hand, you know, and I didn't want to hurt my hand because I'm playing baseball the next day or whatever. So he said, how can we instill this better, And I thought about this, I pondered that, and I just said, it's one thing to set, and this applies to business. This is how it applies to business. It's one thing to set a boundary, and it's another thing to uphold a boundary. Okay, so when I'm talking about focus and we implement these systems, okay, I got this brand new system, let me implement it. Yeah, well, they're not going to follow it. So you have to be able to uphold whatever you put in place. Right? So a rule I want to leave your listeners with is do not put a rule in place you're not willing to uphold. Do not put a system in place you're not willing to uphold. And that's something on the mat that you can really translate into business. And I just loved it.
Absolutely. Well, look, Jiu-Jitsu has taught me a lot. And look, I'll probably record another podcast about the sport and why business owners should do something like Jiu-Jitsu, another sport, something that basically gets them to develop. Besides the learning, there's just a lot of little fundamental things that are really worth understanding. But I've been to a number of different seminars, and I train at an academy called Atos, which is led by Andre Galvao. One of the seminars was by JT Torres, and if you're not familiar, look him up sometime. Probably one of the most humble people I've ever met, very giving and very real.
Most are, right?
Yeah. If you see this guy ever, if you meet him, you'll find that he's just a bloke like you and I. There's nothing really magical about him. But when he goes on the mat, man, he is an absolute champion. Lucas Barbosa was the latest one I've been to. He's actually just been fighting in the World Championship. Mate, not the biggest guy, but his passion and devotion to things, man, it's full on. And I guess what I like about Jiu-Jitsu, just to sort of highlight a few things, is that a lot of these guys who basically become awesome have got their own little things that are available to you and I. You and I, if we fiddle around, we could probably figure something like that out. But they create it, perfect it, and then use it to win championships. And that's amazing. And I think that's, what a lot of business owners sometimes are missing, because, why is it that people are so reluctant to try something of their own? Why is it that they want to say, hey, my competitors are doing this and I'm going to copy this, or I'm going to try to do something similar because they must be doing good? Instead of like say, hey, why don't we try something new? Why don't we try something that aligns with us and works for us? So yeah, a bit of a rhetorical question there, but anyway, you get the idea.
Yeah, but oh man, the humility, you said the magic word, humility, and what that brings out in you, that when you have the strength, when it's not fake, when you actually have the strength, you don't need to show off, and you then let go of the self in terms of, having an empty cup and allowing knowledge to come in instead of upholding like, oh, I don't want to learn anything because I know everything. And when you talked to me about coaching earlier, when you said what holds the business owner, because they come with this like pride of like, no, I can do all this on my own. And it's just like, I don't work with those people. You're not ready for me. When you have the humility to just say, hey, I'm coming to you with beginner's mind. Wow, now we can get far, because that's where the learning starts.
That's right. I mean, the best student is always the person who is happy to consider themselves the dumbest person in the room. That's the only way to learn. If you come into a class thinking you know everything, you're in for a big lesson. And certainly, once again, if we draw the line with BJJ and use that as an analogy, I think that's a very right example right there. Yeah.
I call it truth, actually. Because when somebody's going to break your arm, there's nothing more true at that moment than that.
Yeah, that's right. Well, mate, I feel like you and I can be talking forever, and I think we've touched on a lot of really important aspects. We obviously spoke about, your story, the business that you do, the businesses you work with. We spoke about some tips. I'm pretty sure we may have to do another podcast sometime soon, just being the amount of content we've crammed into this. And I obviously know that, you've got a lot going on and some goals until the end of the year.
We'll do it on my show.
Maybe we'll do that. So before we wrap up, I thought I'd just go through this new thing that I'm implementing into my podcast called Rapid Fire. This is where I ask you, fairly simple, well, maybe not so simple questions, and I just want a simple answer. You ready?
Yep.
Okay. So what's the best country in the world?
Nicaragua.
Okay. Your favorite personal development book?
Personal development book. Oh my God, I've read thousands. Personal development book. That's tough. Hold on. At the moment, I'll just go with a recent book I read that I thought was really nailed it. Is Dan Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time.
Okay, I'll check it out. I was going to ask something about ice hockey, but I haven't heard that once from you. Very unusual for a Canadian. There's obviously a bit of ice hockey in the air. The question I've got for you, mate, is when are you coming to Australia?
Oh, I don't know. Probably never, actually.
Don't say that.
I'm sort of like a hermit. I like to stay in my little hut, and then I'm comfortable. And I've just seen so much of life, though I haven't seen Australia.
Well, I think you'd be surprised. It's such a big country with so many little spots where people can feel like they're living on an island. But anyway, I'll let you explore that another time. Jean-Luc, thanks very much for jumping on the call. This has been a bit of a spontaneous podcast, but I got quite intrigued to have an international guest, and I think for those of you listening, it's always interesting to meet a person who lives their dream, who doesn't just apply simple principles and stay in their comfort zone, but continuously pushes their boundary. Jean-Luc, absolute pleasure, mate.
Same, brother. Wow, just really great meeting you, and thanks for all the great questions.
All right. Well, guys, if you're enjoying this podcast and you'd like to hear more stories like this, please make sure you subscribe and share this with your friends and family or whoever else can benefit from it. I'm sure there's a bunch of people who want to do things better or who want to basically change their life, and maybe they need an example or an inspiration. If my podcast can provide, inspiration, motivation, and education, that's exactly what it's about. My name is Alexei, and I'll chat to you soon.